Welcome back, folks, to the Rebel's Edge, where Pete Najarian and I are going to break down for you the top business news stories of the day, a little prediction market, some sports, and of course, take a look at the VIX and the VIXen. What happens when all three major indices are moving to the upside? Pete will break it down for you on today's Rebel's Edge. Well, Pete. So you're heading back out to the Vikings today, huh?
Yeah. Just having a conversation with somebody there about some stuff or whatever. And tell you what, John, watching those guys yesterday, I tell you what, our division's going to look good because Detroit's damn good. Chicago's pretty damn good. Green Bay's got a beat up here and there, but if they get healthy, when they get healthy, actually. And then you've got the Vikings. And you know what? Watching the quarterbacks, watching the little guy run around out there, because he's pretty small.
Little guy.
Well, shoot, the guy's like 5'9" or 10 or something like that. He's pretty small out there, especially with the big monsters that they drafted this past year. And boy, did those guys look good. So it was a 90-degree day. They were out there sweating pretty hard, and it was interesting to kind of just see how they were doing and the levels that some of these. They're really excited about their draft picks. I mean, they really are. Talking to some of their guys, their GM and stuff. I mean, they feel like they've hit the best part of things that they've had since they've been there. A lot of these different coaches and so forth. So they're pretty excited about that. And we're going to be watching a video later on that's going to be talking about somebody else who's pretty excited about things. So that'll be good.
Yeah, maybe somebody else that at least some people think might have had the best draft.
Yeah.
So, and it ain't the Vikings.
It's not. The
might have done very well.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, let's dive into macro. Positive sentiment is supported by economic data that indicates that inflation really isn't out of control, and thus maybe not as important that the Fed thinks about hiking rates, because that's what three members of the Fed were saying at the last meeting, which was, basically 2 weeks ago, Pete. I'm thinking that the new chairman, Kevin Warsh, is probably wondering what those guys were smoking when they were seeing, really, you need us to hike rates right now? All right, let's give it a little bit of input from what we think is the economic drivers of inflation, and then let's decide. Well, it seems like that has faded, Pete. What do you say?
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, John. And, we've had CPI, we've had PPI, we've gotten this economic data, as you were talking about. And matter of fact, PPI dropped in July. So interesting. And I think that, the doves are out there and they're probably figuring, you know what, everything that you just said, they can probably be pausing again. So we'll see how things float, John. But, you and I both have been very, I think, spot on our take as far as what the inflation really is surrounded by. And all you've got to do is take a look at the price of crude oil each and every day, WTI, and you see it going up, that's probably not so great. And if you see it coming down, people are starting to feel a lot better about the whole inflation thing and deflation maybe someday.
Well, let's hit volatility, Pete, because you're looking at a 14 handle for the VIX. That we haven't seen since the day before Christmas. Christmas Eve, Pete, was the last day that we had a 14 handle, and we're right back there right now.
Yeah, we're sitting there again. It's pretty interesting to see, and it's when you look at what's happening, and you actually look at the S&P, and we talk about this all the time. There's always a little bit of play within the S&P itself, or whatever. It can be up 0.5%, and whatever. But in this case, you take a look over at the S&P, John. And it's up 0.75%, so you're getting closer. But I think where we are right now makes a heck of a lot of sense. Now, I think it's just a moment or even a comment from the president or Iran or whomever that this thing couldn't spike right back up. But when I say spike right back up, I'm not talking about 20s now. I'm just talking about getting back there somewhere over north of maybe 16 or 18 or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how long we're able to sustain being down here. But looking at the S&P and looking at the idea that it's only up 0.75%, this actually makes full sense that we're here between 1440 and 1470.
Well, let's do a little prediction market, Pete. It's kind of sports because, of course, the NFL MVP voting would be sports. And Josh Allen is the breakaway leader. 13% chance that he is the MVP this year. So after they get rid of their coach, Pete, and it's kind of like Josh Allen's team now, he wasn't in favor, as far as I know, of getting rid of the coach. But now with a new coach in there who's leaning pretty heavy on Josh Allen, it's more or less his team. That's the way people are looking at it. And he's 13%, and Justin Herbert is right there behind him, nipping at his heels.
And, Lamar Jackson, who we know can run with the football, he can throw with the football. He's a heck of a guy. They have a new head coach there as well. So, you just always wonder how well does it go, and how well does it go when things are going bad, because those moments in time do come up. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I would have picked Josh Allen probably as the most likely, and 13%. It's not like it's a massive number in front of other players or whatever, but I got to tell you, and it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, man, I swear to you, when they gave him an offensive line after giving up 60 sacks or what it was, the year before, this guy really played well and really impressive. And, I think the world of the coach and what they've been able to do with the Bears and how they've done it pretty rapidly. So I don't know, him being down there at 8%, I would have put him probably a little bit closer and somewhere maybe even between Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, because I think that much of what Caleb has showed us last year, if he even improves a little on that, John, he ought to be right up there with Josh Allen, I think.
Well, and I was kind of surprised, Pete, that Drake May, in betting anyway, was ahead of Caleb Williams, because I'm right there with you. I think Drake May had a great campaign last year, obviously got to the Super Bowl, was kind of hit on pretty hard by that Seattle defense. But he is a good young quarterback, but I'd go with Caleb 99 times out of 100 over Drake May. I just would.
Well, I like Drake May, though, but I will say this. That offensive line made no help for him in the Super Bowl. I mean, that offensive line was getting their butts kicked in the Super Bowl. So it's not all Drake May on that one.
Nope, that's true. All right, let's hit Tapestry, Pete, because this is the parent company of Coach and Kate Spade. In fact, the company used to be called Coach, and then they changed the name to Tapestry, TPR. Well, they were cracked hard because the results did not satisfy, despite they had an upbeat outlook in some of their reports. Nonetheless, overall, I think people looked at this earnings announcement and said, you know what? Growth doesn't look as strong as it should look for this company. And for that reason, we're going to hit it. And a lot of people lowered targets too, Pete.
Yeah, they really pounded this one down. And is it for the right reasons? Maybe. I mean, it might even be a little bit of an overreaction, possibly. I mean, they had a few positives that you could go out and talk about, John. They talked about returning to profitability. I mean, that was one of them. I do understand also, though, that you look at Kate Spade and you see the challenges and the decline of about 11%. That probably spooked people a fair amount, because it would have spooked me. So I get it, but when you look, they did beat on their earnings. The revenue was a little bit soft, I guess, but that's a pretty good crack that they're taking. So that would be one of those where I don't think that they are going to just turn and burn and start going right back up to the upside, but it's one that I certainly would keep on my radar to see, is there any kind of change? Is this thing going to, pull up a little bit over the next couple of weeks? I don't mean to just today. I mean over the next couple of weeks, because they do have some good numbers in certain spots. I mean, but expectations were very, very high, and they did not meet them.
Yeah, and according to the technicals, Pete, somewhere in the consolidation zone, when you look at TPR, folks, it is 120 to 130 where we should find some footing. And right where we are, Pete? 130.
Of course.
So we'll see whether or not that holds. Now, again, if it doesn't, because they're down $23 from 153 to 130. But if they can hold in that range right there that I described. I think some people will be willing to come back into this one, Pete, despite the fact that this was not their shining moment in
Right.
EPS land.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at networking giant Cisco, because they issued strong 2027 guidance. They said AI infrastructure spend, bang, but sadly, margin outlook, gross margins were guided lower. That was one of the reasons that people looked at Cisco and said, let's maybe step back a little bit rather than diving in. Even though some of these earnings estimates, Pete, are pretty darn eye-opening.
Yeah, and you know, they delivered in just about everything. Just about everything. But you know what? When you've got a market like this where stocks have been going up and we're seeing all-time highs in a lot of the indices, or at least if we aren't there, we're very close and we've been there, establishing some of those highs. It does almost require almost perfection. And to that point, and you brought it up, the only thing that I could find was that gross margins and the guide of that being going a little bit lower. Everything else looked fantastic. I mean, you're sitting there looking at their guidance, and they said, "Yeah, we got strong guidance." And you look at the drive that they're getting out of AI infrastructure. Sure, that's really great. They talk about the revenue projections of 72 billion to 73 billion. I mean, these numbers are just outrageous, but as you pointed out, I mean, there was one thing, and that's what people are focusing on today, and that's why the stock's down 7%. But this is a stock that's had a pretty nice run, so I think that maybe that's part of it. And you know what? They're an absolutely well-oiled machine, so I wouldn't be surprised if this thing rallied back sometime over the next couple of weeks back to where they were.
Well, let's hit Coherent, Pete. This is the second time this week we've talked about it. I put it on my watch list with Trade Monster AI. And this one, the stock basically closed last night at 355. It opened at 344, so that's down 11 bucks. But then it ran all the way to a gain of $5 or $6 on the day to 362, Pete. And then came all the way back down again. I mean, this thing, we talk about heartbeat market. This was like dum, 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 like that. Yeah. I mean, right now it's at 342. It's down 4%. That ain't the end of the world. But when you trade 362 and then you come back down to 342, people are wondering what the heck is going on. And I think you and I have some pretty good reasons, perhaps, why it saw such a decline early on. And then I can't really explain why they ran it up to 362, Pete, but then they dumped it.
Yeah, another one where, again, we've been talking about the earnings themselves, right? And we've been saying, hey, 86% beats on the earnings side, revenue side, about 80% beats. So this one falls in the category. They beat on the revenue, they beat on the earnings. Needham's out there saying, hey, look, we were at 380, now we're at 420, which is not all that far away, and that they were not too far away from it recently either. So, yeah, you know, there's always the expectations that people have, and you know how that's going to play out. But I don't know. It's a really interesting stock, as you said. We've talked about it a couple of times this week. It's only down a few percent, whatever it is. I think this is a name that probably we see going higher, not lower, over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and if you were in it, and you did get that shot to sell it after it rebounded from the pre-market sell-off. Again, that emphasizes what Pete always talks about, folks, DDA. Yeah. Discipline dictates action. And so your discipline should have had you at least lighten up a little. And if you did, and then it comes all the way back down to unched or down just a couple percent, you feel like you're not a loser. You took some money off the table and then you moved on to the next trade. Well, speaking of which, moving on, Pete, Cerebras Systems, not Cerberus, the private equity firm, but Cerebras Systems, down hard. AI chip and wafer scale company missed on their headline revenue number despite strong cloud and all the rest. Well, then how's your full year guidance? Well, they did raise it. They did raise it, Pete. So the looking backward part, not so good. The looking forward part, pretty good. So would you think this is one that investors would take another look at, Pete, and maybe even start nibbling here?
Maybe, John. One of the things also, and you just said correctly that it raised full year guidance, but they disappointed on their Q3 guidance. So there's kind of that little bit of a mix, I think, going on. And they also had a net loss of $450 million. So there's a few things in there that are negative for now. But obviously, when they say that their full year guide is strong like it is, and raised it, I think that's what I would be looking at. I think that's the thing that probably makes the most sense and the most important thing of what they've got. But I think there are a couple of reasons why maybe there's still a little pressure being put on the stock today. What is it, 10% or something, I think, John, to the downside?
Yeah, like 13 now.
Oh, okay. So it's dripping further.
Well, and they're in the right space. I mean, it's artificial intelligence. They came out in May. The stock basically just exploded, Pete, all the way up to 386, and then started a very steep decline, like a lot of stocks do after they come out of an IPO, initial public offering. These guys did the same. Look at SpaceX, for instance. The first 2 days out of the chute, it was just boom to the upside, and then kind of, ratcheted all the way down. But you look at SpaceX today, SPCX, making a pretty nice recovery from those big sell-offs. I mean, it got all the way down, Pete, to 104. And today, before, a 3% sell-off, it was up around 147, I'm sorry. 147, which is still $13 above the IPO, the pricing.
Right.
So, and I know I'm jumping around between SpaceX and Cerebras, but this is what happens when you first come out and you can't borrow the stock. Sometimes you get that nice big pop to 386. And then as shares are available, they start hammering it down because they say, man, you didn't IPO at 346. We don't think they mispriced it that badly, so we're going to hammer it for a bit, and hammer it they did. But I think, Pete, basically 205 to 220 is the area you want to be targeting for this one.
Yeah.
Not a magic number, but it's just an area where when I look at the charts, I say maybe in that range I would be interested. And I know you don't do this, Pete, but maybe I would be interested in selling puts in that area.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with selling puts. It's just, there's the nervousness of some of that sometimes.
Yeah, you're taking on the risk. You have to buy it on a big drop.
Yeah.
Once it goes through that put strike, you might be put the stock.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a look, Pete, at that. You talked about the Vikings and drafts and things like that. This guy has an opinion about who had the best draft. And when you listen to it, and then you know what they have next year, oh my, this team might not be nearly as bad as they've been for the last couple decades. Let's listen.
Truly can't believe it, but there is only one team that has nailed every single pick this draft. Not a single mistake. It is not a question. The team that has won the NFL draft is the New York Jets. First, they land the best pass rusher in the entire draft. This guy is relentless. He has counter moves. The production was there. The guy is an absolute stud. And then they land by far the best tight end in the entire class, Kenyon Sadiq, otherwise known as George Kittle 2.0. He is a matchup nightmare. He is an absolute
That's a compliment to George for his speed.
He's just about untackleable. He's going to get in the end zone. Then they land my favorite wide receiver in the entire class, Omar, you can't tackle me, Cooper Jr. This guy is basically a pinball. If he has the ball in the open field, there's no one like him when it comes to staying up. Look at him. Are you kidding me? And then finally, they land the best pound-for-pound player in the entire draft, D'Angelo Ponds. He has some of the most impressive tape I've ever watched.
2 kicks from Indiana.
This is him. Pick 6, first play of the Peach Bowl. Remember that? That was him. The coolest part is his pro comparison was Aaron Glenn, his head coach now. And by the way, if you want to stay updated in the football world, make sure you're following. And here's the final reason that no one's talking about why this draft is so brilliant. The Jets have 3 first-round picks next year, meaning they're going to be able to land any quarterback that they want. When that quarterback steps in the pocket, unlike most QBs, he
after all
have
these
a loaded
quarterbacks
offense
this year
already around him. The Jets have dominated every pick. They're planning for the future. They're doing everything right. A+ draft. I truly...
I have to agree with him, Pete. The draft this year was special. And next year, with 3 first-round picks, if that Jets team isn't one of the top teams after this, because again, they already have those picks for next year. Yeah. Now, one of those picks could drop down if they have a great year this year. We understand. But the other 2 are picks that they got through trades and things, Pete. And my gosh, this is going to be a very interesting draft next year with 3 first-round picks.
Yep, they're doing a lot of things right. I'll tell you what, you get the one coach going out there to the New York Jets, the other coach going down to Chicago from Detroit. I mean, they took the best out of Detroit, and I think it unfortunately hurt Detroit this past year. And it's been, it's one of those things where when you've got great coordinators, man, people are going to come and try to grab them, and they did. And I like what the Jets are doing. There's no doubt about it. You know what? But it's words that you don't really very often hear, which is, God, the Jets might have had the best draft ever. It's great to see.
I don't remember hearing that ever, Pete, ever. So that's a big deal.
Might have to go back to Joe Namath or something. I don't know. Anyway, John, some college football. So I thought it would be kind of a fun thing for us to do this because now that we really are cranking it up, I mean, I'm going to see the Gophers later on today, but it's interesting to see where these teams really are and how impressive some of them are, and maybe it's their year. And I think I just broke it down by 4 different units, John, different conferences that we could kind of talk about. So the usual suspects of going to the playoff, we all know that. I mean, Ohio State, Georgia, pretty much a lock. Maybe throw in Alabama. I mean, not maybe. Alabama's pretty much very close to a lock as well. So what I did was this. How about in the Big Ten? I wanted to see who's finally going to make it into the, be a surprise pick. How about USC? USC's got a quarterback, and if he's as good as everybody keeps kind of touting him to be, John, it could get really, really interesting. But they have a really difficult mid-season grouping of games that they've got. They've got Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Wisconsin, but Ohio State and Indiana. So, I mean, if they get through that gauntlet and they can go 4-2, and those are the only 2 losses that they have, I would say that they're a team that finally is going to get into the playoff. And, interesting to see because think of the money USC's got. Think of the athletes that they've got. They've got to get themselves, and it's why you and I even brought it up the other day, is the seat getting a little warm out there for Lincoln Riley? I mean, I know it's only a short time, but hey, man, that's a lot of money that these guys are spending out there. So I think USC from the Big Ten. I think Navy from the American Conference, John, which is a crazy thing to say, Navy, but let me tell you, they got a dual threat quarterback that is really good, and they've put 2 back-to-back years where they've had double-digit wins. So Navy is kind of one of those that's kind of knocking on the door. I threw Louisville in there for the ACC because everybody's always going with Clemson and SMU and all the rest of these guys. But Louisville's one of those kind of sneaky good teams that's out there. And the last one I got is everybody knows Texas Tech, but how about BYU? BYU is just one of those teams. They've got a quarterback back who's going to be pretty unbelievable this year, and he's pretty much a monster. But I just wanted to throw out a few of those and see if you kind of felt like that made sense, or do you got somebody else that you think is a sleeper out there?
No, I think all of those make sense. But I'm going to say out of the Pac-12, Pete, and the Pac-12 is an interesting conference. It's not a great conference. I'm not saying that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Oregon State, you've got Washington State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State. You get the idea. You got to have state after
you have to have state.
Utah State, Texas State, and Gonzaga doesn't play football. They just play basketball. So they're not in the football picture here. But you know who is? Boise State.
Yeah, they're good.
By the way, why don't they call it the State 12 Conference instead of the Pac-12, Pete? Because if you have to have state in your name, and literally I didn't make that up, everybody in the conference has state in their name, except for Gonzaga. And again, they're not in the football side of things. But I would say, Pete, that Boise, we know from time to time those guys shock the world, like when they shocked Oklahoma, 20 years ago or whatever. they've put out some good players. You know, that
Yeah.
running back for your Raiders, Pete, is a damn good running back, Heisman guy. He is a beast. They have Division I quality players. It's a question of, do they have enough to stay healthy through the year? Because the other teams just plug and play. If somebody drops at any of those big schools that you talked about, Pete, they just plug another 5-star recruit in there. Boise doesn't have that luxury. If a guy goes down and he might have been a 4-star, they're dropping down to a 2-star, maybe to fill that spot. Yeah. So I'd say Boise could surprise, but I like your list. I do like your list, but keep Boise in mind.
And I love that you brought up the Pac-12, because as crazy as it sounds, Pac-12 and they all these various teams or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting, and the fact that they all have state with their name is pretty classic. I think
the state 12, make it real, do it.
Why not? Hey, I was going to give you a little update on yesterday when I was over there and just see what you think about the quarterback position, that they already made that call. Who's going to be number one? And it's Kyler Murray. So we've got that, but I'd be curious more about what you think of him, because I'll tell you what, I'm sitting there watching the guy. He's got, when he came out, there's a reason that guy was the first pick in the draft. But in any case, I looked at one of their defensive linemen who was in the part of the draft last year, John, who I don't know if it was because of injury or what, but he didn't play a whole lot. This kid named Ingram Dawkins is his last name. He was the 225 draft, 6'5", 290-pound, big defensive tackle, right? I mean, I like the looks of this kid. Then they've got this kid, Dominic Orange, who they call Big Citrus because of the orange, and he's a monster. And then you got Caleb Banks at 6'6", 330. When those three guys were put in there yesterday at the same time, I think I saw them all three at the same time. Because one of them can always slide out and play a defensive end role. John, big defense, and there's not people going through there. And specifically, because they're all so tall and big that way too, they're not just 300-pounders or 350-pounders or whatever, but we're talking 6'5", 6'6", 6'4", whatever. They're blocking a lot of passes from a lot of these teams. Matter of fact, if that D-line had to play games against the Vikings, it would be very interesting with the smaller quarterback in there, how many games they're going to be swatting down the ball, right? So pretty interesting to see that. And Caleb Banks, you just look at the guy and you're like, God, that's a scary human being, man. All 6'6" and 330 pounds of him. And then they got a cornerback that they took late who's out there, and he's going up against Justin Jefferson, Juwan Jennings, Jordan Addison, probably some of the Vikings, if not the best, they're somewhere in the top 5 of best receivers in the NFL, I would say, as a group. So, this guy's out there, and these guys can't catch the ball against him. So this guy is absolutely balling it up. It's great to watch somebody like that who's a lower round pick, 5th round pick, cornerback. Everybody thinks you've got to go to the 1st round. Sometimes guys screw up, right? And they find a guy like this in the 5th round. This guy's going to be playing on Sundays, and he's going to be playing early in his career because he's a damn good cornerback who, I'm not kidding, watching him go up against those guys. I mean, literally, those 3 guys are probably top 10 of the 10. I mean, that's how good they are. They're that good. And so it's going to be interesting. That doesn't mean that the Vikings are going to be unbeatable and all the rest of that, but very impressive defense and a very impressive defensive line. But what do you think? I mean, it's still a big argument here about Kyler Murray, by the way. There's a lot of people. Yeah. So tell me what you think.
Yeah, I'll say it, Pete. He's drafted in 2019. Yes. He was the offensive rookie of the year. Enough said. I mean, the offensive rookie of the year. And the Vikings got him for nothing. $1.3 million. And what do they have to pay him? Nothing. I think it's $1 million or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he's still getting his Arizona contract.
Right.
Now, the Vikings have proved that they can get a great guy like Sam Darnold or Cousins and then lose him the next year because they refuse to pay him. But they got him for free for the 1 year. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, we're not going to pay him. I think, Pete, Kyler Murray could really do a great job there. I mean, kid's thrown for 121 touchdowns and 60 interceptions. So 2-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions. Like it. I'd like it if it was, 3-to-1, but 2-to-1, I get it. And he never had an elite offensive line in front of him, Pete. He never had, he may have had Fitzgerald for 1 or 2 years. I forget when Fitzgerald retired, Pete, and that kid's a Hall of Famer, of course, but he didn't have, other than Fitzgerald, he didn't have Hall of Fame wideouts and tight ends and things like that. Minnesota's got Hall of Fame tight ends potentially.
Yeah.
He hasn't won it yet, I know, but I mean, the kid is damn good. He's another Iowa tight end. Yeah. Aren't they all?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. And, like you said, Kittle or Sadiq the Freak. Now, Sadiq was, of course, Oregon. I'm not saying he was Iowa. Don't give me the hate, folks. I know where he played. But I think that this could be really interesting. Kyler Murray, a guy that knows how to get the ball into the hands of receivers, and Justin Jefferson, your tight end, Pete, Hawkins. The other wide receivers you guys have. I mean, I think that this kid certainly should be set up with the offensive line improvements that you've made. He should be set up to not get sacked 60 times and instead to throw, who knows, does he throw 30 touchdowns? He could with that lineup. He really could. So, time for the quarterback whisperer to let that magic loose.
The key, I think, to the whole thing, because watching the guy, he's got a strong arm. He's got a beautiful, the ball looks great, going through the air and all that kind of stuff that people like to look at. But the offensive line's got to be there. They've got to be there for him because, yes, He can scramble, he can run. That's a great thing to have. But at some point, that means he's going to get hurt. Because when you run around the NFL and you've got big linebackers and even big safeties and so forth running after you and hitting you pretty damn hard week after week after week, that becomes a problem after a while. So it really comes down to, does that offensive line give them just enough time? They don't have to give them all day. They're not going to be the best offensive line of football. There's no doubt about that. But are they pretty decent? They're pretty decent. They have problems still at center. And we'll see if our big left tackle, who's supposed to be so good, can actually shake off the injuries and maybe drop a few pounds right here because he's got a little bit too much in the belly area, I can tell you that. But you know what? It's going to be interesting. And if they can hold guys back, this is a guy who can throw the ball. Kyler can throw the ball all over the field if he's got that amount of time, and they can open up some holes out there because he is a little bit shorter than most quarterbacks. So let's be real. Most of these quarterbacks are anywhere between 6'2" and 6'4", maybe even 6'5", and he's not there. So they got to help him by opening up those windows downfield as well by the offensive line. So a lot of pressure, I think, is on them for how they do is how the Vikings do this year.
All right. Well, I like it, Pete. Yeah. I like it. And that's like from the guy that was right there at the training camp the last couple days, folks. And maybe he'll give us an update on how his Gophers look since he's going to go over and watch them today, too. All right. Pete, this is the last Rebels Edge of the week, of course. It's Thursday. We don't do Fridays, but we certainly appreciate all of you joining us, folks. Please tell your friends. We'd love to have them join us as well. And you'll be hearing a lot more about our RebelCon 2026 coming up October 20th and 21st out in Las Vegas at Circa Hotel and Casino. Just a fabulous lineup of people. That one guy with the big beard there, folks, that's Nitty. Nitty has one of the most watched TED Talks on quantum computing. So if you want to know about quantum, you want to know about data centers, you want to know about pre-IPOs, you want to know about investing in crowd funds and all the rest. I mean, we got Grasso coming, Pete, from your days with Fast Money and so forth. Yeah. We've got Steve Grasso, great guy. He helps raise money for a lot of emerging technology companies. We've got Derek Stevens. We've got Todd Alt. I mean, we've got a killer lineup with more to be announced every week. So, in fact, I was just going back and forth with one of the guys, Pete, with Dr. Drew, who's coming, and we're going to put his picture up there next week, and maybe his sidekick as well is going to be up there next week. But we've got a lot of really big names, folks. It's $6.95 for you to join, but it's discounted to $4.95 until September 10th. So scan that QR code, sign up, grab that great price, because at $4.95 with the lineup we've got, you'd expect to pay $4,000 or $5,000 if this was somewhere else. But with our friends at Circa helping us out here, we're able to do it at a price that still makes sense for you and for us. So check it out, scan that QR code, and then, of course, join Pete and I on Monday. At what time, Pete?
We're going to be doing it at 1 p.m. Eastern time, John. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And you know what? We get a little bit of football this weekend, so it'll be something to watch out there.
Bang. See you Monday, folks. Have a great one.